This is the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metrics Card. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metrics Card. I'm your host Shrestha, and today we are joined by John Giuarso. He is the founder of Wanta5, and he is also starting this TikTok shop agency called Soho this June. And we're super excited to hear from him all about social commerce trends that's shaping up this year and what essentially brands need to prep up for a TikTok shop. So let's get started. Hey John, how are you doing? I'm so thrilled to have you here in this show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm great.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What inspired you to start a TikTok shop agency, and what gap did you see in the market as of now?
Yeah, so my background is basically being in the commerce industry my entire adult life. So I started an Amazon agency when I was in my early 20s,
Mm.
did that for a decade, and have been basically a commerce nerd with about a 2-year hiatus for the last 20 years roughly. Um, I have been watching social commerce for 10 years as a trend. You don't have to have a crystal ball. All you have to do is look east, right? You have to look at what's happened in China and other Asian countries to see that this already was this, not necessarily TikTok Shop, although that's a big part of it,
Yeah.
but just social commerce in general has been a huge phenomenon for a decade. It just never really worked in the US. And I kept watching it and talking to people and trying to figure out why. The the conclusion I came to was that you needed a single platform that would integrate both the social and the commerce. And in the US, you just didn't have that. You had Amazon and Walmart and Shopify on one side, and then you had, Meta and, well, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, go down the list on the other side. And so even though consumers may have picked up this behavior, it was just too disintermediated for it to really work for a consumer. It wasn't that Chinese consumers were fundamentally different than American consumers. It was just that they had kind of a single source for this experience that was built into the apps themselves that just never really existed in the US until TikTok Shop really, took this on. So, I was basically sitting on the sidelines. I was kind of out of the commerce game for the last 2 years. Um, but when I kind of came back into it, it was like, oh, this is happening now. Like, this is definitely happening. This thing I've sort of been waiting for like 10 years. And it was just like, there's nothing there to like hold on to. There's absolutely now something to hold on to. And in my opinion, it is the next like big thing in the overall landscape of commerce.
Right. Do you think it started post-COVID?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really, TikTok Shop in the US has really only been around for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like immediately in the aftermath of COVID or during it where a lot of that kind of consumer behavior change started to happen. I would say it was really like 2023 when it really started to become an important phenomenon. So I really think, it was frankly less of a consumer driven trend,
Right.
more of a platform driven trend, meaning TikTok Shop sort of obviously they already had a ton of scale on just the core app, but they basically took all that traffic and that kind of, new behavior and then they started to directly monetize it via TikTok Shop in this kind of novel way, at least novel in the US. And so I would say and now, you have fast followers, YouTube, other platforms are obviously seeing this and trying to build their own versions of it.
Makes sense. Uh, to give an overall perspective to the audience, what are some of the social commerce trends that you're seeing are shaping up in 2025?
Yeah. So, you know, one, just the rapid consumer adoption of this, that just in and of itself is a big trend, right? The fact that like, it's not just, random impulse shopping. It's not just $7 products. Even 2 years ago, TikTok Shop looked very different than it looks today. It was very much Gen Z. It was cheap crap, if I'm allowed to say that, right? It was kitschy impulse. Just it was no different than like Temu for 19-year-olds, right? It wasn't like a serious mainstream channel for most consumer product brands. Even in the last 18 months, that has really started to change. You see luxury brands, premium brands, national brands, and again, not just selling yoga pants, right? But across categories, hardlines, CPG, brands that cater to 45-year-old men are doing well, right? Like this kind of like niche focus that TikTok Shop had has really started to become mainstream. So I'd say one, the overall growth, but two, the sort of mainstreaming of this phenomenon is also something that's really important to watch.
So true. How do you see TikTok's role evolving in commerce over the next few years?
I think they're going to be a player, like a real player. I was around not for the early days of Amazon, but I was around for Amazon in like 2008,
Mm.
where if you weren't selling media or consumer electronics, they were not an important retailer for you, right? If you were selling housewares or protein bars or dresses, they were just like a weird little obscure afterthought. That changed in like 3 years.
Yeah.
That went from being like everyone's ignoring them to they are the hot new thing. We have to have a strategy. Like, our competitors are going to eat our lunch because so much volume is shifting to this new channel that if you're not winning with them, you're losing overall market share. I think that's going to happen with TikTok Shop. I wouldn't say that's today, right? It's still to me a somewhat um, nascent kind of incremental channel where you can definitely drive GMV, but it's not going to like make your year necessarily if you're a big brand. But 2 years from now, 100% that'll be the case.
I think I would second you on that. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that brands face when they set up a TikTok shop?
I think they take a an existing mindset from a different channel and they try to one-to-one map it onto TikTok Shop. And I see this a lot. And it basically is just it's a bias. And it's totally fair that people have this, but it comes up a lot. So for example, um, if you're a paid media agency or a paid media practitioner inside of a brand and you look at TikTok Shop, you're going to view it first and foremost as a paid media channel. Let's
Right.
put dollars towards driving GMV on this platform. If you are focused on influencer, you're going to view it as an influencer first channel that then also sells some stuff, right? If you are focused on content or brand, that's what you're going to focus on, but you're going to try to shoehorn it in to TikTok Shop. It's not that those are the wrong answer. It's just, it's not the full story.
Mm.
So to do TikTok Shop well, you really genuinely do need to view it as a one-of-one unique platform that encompasses paid, influencer, sampling, live. There's operational and logistic elements. There's kind of strategy that maps over the entire thing. It is really in the same way that Shopify was or direct to consumer was a unique channel or Amazon is a unique channel. It is its own thing. You can make comparisons. There's learnings from other channels that you can apply, even compared to just TikTok, the core experience. Again, it is its own thing. And to do it well, to maximize the upside of it, you really need to go in with sort of um, a fresh slate in terms of like you're thinking about it without all these preconceived notions. Because it is just a unique channel that requires a unique approach and frankly like a fair amount of work to get it right. Like, there's just a lot of stuff you have to do to kind of pull all the right levers to get it to work out in your favor.
Right. I think it's sort of this holistic approach that brands need to have, and I guess this is where also Soho comes into play, where brands really need to work with an agency to understand the ins and outs of how TikTok really works for them.
I mean, listen, I'm biased here. I think you should hire a full service agency to do this. I also think you can do it by building a full service TikTok Shop team internally. It's really just one of cost because you're going to need like at least 2 or 3 full-time specialists on your team to do this well. Hiring an agency is usually a faster and more cost-efficient approach.
Right. Uh, so what are some of the trends that brands really need to watch out for when they set up their TikTok shop in the coming years?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say like phenomenon or sort of misconceptions. So there is, I think, sometimes there's a sense that to to be successful on TikTok Shop, you need to go viral.
Right.
That like the whole idea is you're, building these sort of like these viral moments, the ocean spray guy on the skateboard moment. I mean, if you can do that, that's great, obviously, right? That's going to drive a lot of volume. But usually it's a game of showing up consistently, A/B testing a lot of stuff. There's a certain amount of just like volume of creative you need, run through mostly creators, right? And then like some of your own creative. There's then amplification levers with paid, etc. But it's not like you're going for one mega hit, one single video, and it's going to get 10 million views and and blow up your store. It's really about hitting a lot of singles and then a couple doubles, and then maybe you hit a few home runs, right? But
Yeah.
like, it's also about consistency. You have to keep at it. You have to keep pumping content into the platform over months and months and months. There can be a cold start period, right? I think that's also kind of a misconception is you just like set things up and they sell and like it shouldn't take a year, right? But it usually it takes 3 months to start seeing some like real kind of success, and then maybe 6 months before you're really excited about the channel, like you're really getting to scale. I think there's also a misconception that it's fundamentally a paid channel. A lot of brands come in and they just start dumping money into it, and that's like paid can be a very important lever, but it should be an amplification tool. It shouldn't be the starting point. So we usually, with a few exceptions, at Sova, we don't recommend any of our clients spend any money on TikTok Shop ads until at least 3 months in, because there's a lot of like infrastructure, there's scale with the creative. You need to start A/B testing, understanding what works. And then if you have a creator or a piece of content or some combination of that's doing well, then you can amplify it with ads, and that works well. So, I think the through line to all of this is there is no single magic bullet. There's no like one thing you do and you pull this lever and then it just blows up. It really is a kind of a complicated concerted effort to do it well.
I agree with you. We had one of the founders of a beauty brand, Face It Beauty, join us a couple of episodes earlier. She mentioned about going viral on TikTok for the makeup patches that she's selling. And then it caught up with the cult mentality. There's a lot of user-generated content also that comes along the way. I guess that also sort of plays the role into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to create buzz around the product, right? And if you can get viral videos, that's great. But chasing like stars, and I think that's another related thing, is people think like, I just need to sign the biggest influencer with the biggest audience I can find. Again, there's certainly exceptions to this, but largely, and I think this semantic distinction is important, we're more focused on creators than we are influencers. And just to kind of give you my definition of that, because there's different ones floating out there.
Yeah.
So for me, an influencer is a celebrity, right? There's someone who has a following. Now they may be a celebrity with 400,000 followers, but like they're still in their own right a version of a celebrity. They have a following of people who know who they are. When they recommend something or talk about it, their audience is leaned in to some degree, and them putting their stamp on it, just like if George Clooney says, "Hey, this tequila is great. You order it next time you're at the bar," like that matters. And I'm not dismissing influencers. Obviously, that's a huge phenomenon. It's very important. It's just that it's extremely expensive and it's hard to scale.
Right.
A creator, on the other hand, is someone who creates content to demonstrate a product, to talk about a product.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily interested in who that person is. You're not saying, "Oh, John, the creator, is talking about this product, therefore I'm going to buy it." You're more interested in the product itself, right? And they are the sort of talent in that ecosystem. And some of these people are very good at what they do, right? But they're not necessarily trying to build a following and be famous. They're trying to produce high quality content as the talent in that creative, right? I think those are very important distinctions. The benefit with creators is it's more cost effective because they're not like famous people, right? And there's a better sort of integrated affiliate system inside of TikTok Shop to pay them. So there's a lot more scalability, right? So you can go out and get 500, 1,000 creators to be talking about your product versus trying to get like 5, grand slams with influencers, which is a much more sort of risky, like all or nothing strategy. So I think, we're really focused primarily on creators, and I think that's where most brands should be focused as well.
I completely agree with you. We've come to the end of the episode, and I have one final question for you, and that's about how does a TikTok shop vary for a legacy manufacturing brand or when compared with a new age challenger brand? How should the
So,
approach be different?
you know, i- if TikTok Shop, the channel is new,
Mhm.
then I think there's a lot more similarity than there is difference, right? Because both of those brands, whether you're a 50-year-old, national brand versus like a company that started 2 years ago and you're digitally native, you still kind of need to do the same stuff. You need to make TikTok Shop as a channel work. Um, you know, yeah, I think if you have an existing fan base and following, you can kind of tap into that and short circuit some of the cold start stuff. But that applies both to digitally native as well as national brands. So, I think it's really about getting the fundamentals of TikTok Shop right. And what's fascinating to me right now is if you look at the brands that are doing well, there is no similarity between the brands that are doing well. The
Yeah.
through line between those that are succeeding and those that aren't are frankly the ones that are taking it seriously. If they're taking it seriously, they're mostly succeeding. If they're sitting on the sidelines or dabbling, they're mostly not. Regardless of national brand or category or, are they digitally native? Like
Yeah.
that's the differentiator right now. So
There's no playbook.
yeah, I mean, there is kind of a playbook, right? But like
Yeah.
it's not about where you start, it's about what you do. It
Yeah.
really is. It's about how you execute on the platform.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. It was such a rich, insightful chat, and I've not had a chance to have a chat about social commerce specifically, and you really added to that mix. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me on.
We've come to the end of the episode. If you loved what you just listened to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Monday with a really awesome guest. Stay tuned until then.